Hello and welcome to ProutCast, where we envision yoga as a collective liberation ideology. Today, we're very lucky to have Filipa Costa, who, since 1995, has dedicated her life to volunteering and coordinating social and humanitarian projects in both Portugal and Africa. And this is especially true in the fields of local and community development and psychosocial support in vulnerable socioeconomic contexts. Since 2016, Filipa has been actively collaborating with the Prout Research Institute of Portugal, where she now serves as the president of the board. Well, we're really happy to have you on today, Filipa.
Thank you. Thank you for having me for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here with you and sharing some things of our work.
No, of course. We're really excited to get into this conversation. And hopefully, this topic, especially one that Filipa specializes in, will be something new for all of you. And that is block level planning, which you guys will find out is kind of Prout's alternative model of economic development that differs greatly from the classical Marxist style of economics, which is centralized economic planning. So you'll learn a lot about that today. So, Filipa, let's just get started. How did you find yourself working with the Prout Research Institute in the first place? Like, can you explain to the audience what is the Prout Research Institute of Portugal? What do they do, and how did you get in contact with them?
Yeah. So the Prout Research Institute Portugal exists since 2013. I only was able to engage with the PRIP, it's how the acronym, in 2016. So the main goal is to promote Prout as a socioeconomic model that can be really an alternative solution for our socioeconomic system. It's really focused on promoting the socioeconomic democracy, to promote the social justice, to promote the ethical leadership, and to promote all the models related to this, and very focused also in the self-reliance by regional regions. And so this decentralized economy that you were mentioning and is related with the work that we also are doing. But I was in the beginning, my background in it's psychology, but I was working in the social sphere. So I was a social worker, and I was working, as you mentioned, in Portugal, in most vulnerable contexts in Portugal and Africa. And in my mind, I was always thinking and looking for what kind of system can happen to end poverty. Actually, it was like the beginning of my thoughts and my desire to go deep in this knowledge. And also, at some point of my life, I was engaged with this not only to able to promote the social welfare, but also looking for my personal development. So I was in contact with yoga and meditation, and that brought me, for me, what was a wow moment. That is when I knew that Prout could put together all these beautiful things that I was living and I was looking for. That means that we can go deep in our subtle existence and in our self development, looking for the contact with our own essence, and also to promote like the social welfare of everyone, and the welfare for all the beings. So Proud talks about this and creates this alternative, this model that is an alternative. So yeah, that was what brought me into Proud. And then I wanted to study more, because Proud has a lot of, it's a very comprehensive model, so it has a lot of aspects to go deep. And I started with Prout study circles in Lisbon, and then in the region that we are here in Cova da Beira. So it's like north center region of Portugal, and I started with that Prout study circles.
And when you first started participating in the Prout study circles, what about Prout specifically really connected with you, which led you to be like, this is a system that really I want to fight for.
Hmm. Yeah, it's related with what I mentioned. That is, it's a totally completely different base, even a completely different perspective what is our universe, how this is all related. So because it has the spiritual approach and it has the very practical models and strategies and principles to implement that are aligned with this. So if we can see that really we have a very loving perspective and feeling about all the beings of the universe, this shifts the idea of extractivism, of looking for profit, of um, using as a resources. So I guess this is something that made me feel, yeah, this is a model that I'm very interested in. And then because the idea of the decentralized economy also resonate with me, I really felt that there global problems needs to be solved at the local level, and the people and the citizens and the population needs to be involved in the solutions for our change. So this idea of the not non-centralized and decentralized the economy resonates a lot with me.
Well, yeah, I really like how you pointed out the spiritual dimensions of Prout. And when I mean spiritual, Prout is very unique in that, unlike many other socialist or left-wing theories or ideologies, it's not rooted in the idea of materialism, right? We acknowledge that the layers of humanity go deeper than simply interactions between matter. There's psychological elements, there's spiritual elements at play that politics and an economy need to understand in order to really benefit the progress of humanity. And so I think that really gets into what block level planning is and how economic decentralization really puts into emphasis economic freedom and really taking decision making down to the smallest local roots possible in order to give people almost independence in their decision making. But before we get into that, could you explain like your time working within the Prout Research Institute, like your time working your way up as president of the board, like what experience you've had, what challenges you've faced?
So I started, as I mentioned, in 2016, just with the Proud study circles, and at some point I was more engaged and really interested into applying the block level planning. It was something that I was that I knew a little bit more in our studies, and I really wanted to apply. We don't have so much examples in the world of the application of the block level planning, so I was really inspired by that. And that at that moment I was working more. First, in the beginning I was a volunteer and I was just engaging sometimes, and then I was working more, and we started to apply also for funds in order to have resources to go deep in the block level planning. And at some point, yes, I became the president. The team it's a small team, but it's a very inspired team of 3 people now at the moment, and so 3 employed people at the moment. But then we have more volunteers, and I would say so. The beginning, the first big challenge, it was quite interesting because we started to apply in 20, which were, as I think we remember, the COVID year. So the
Yes.
pandemics began in that moment. And of course, it was quite challenging in the beginning because the block level planning means that we need to reach everyone, that we need to be in contact with the people in our region. And so that was a challenge, of course. And what I felt, it's that even in those challenging times, because it was a challenging times, the minds were much more open to new approach. So yeah, it has the reverse, and I really found that what was a challenge at the moment, it was quite an openness for everyone to hear about a different model that puts things in a different way, because pandemic was like the moment that put it in more clear
Yes.
to
Yes.
everyone what is the centralized economy can mean to everyone, no? And how it
Yes.
can impact negatively everyone.
Yes. I mean, I that is really cool you pointed out. I think that COVID time really exposed how unforgiving and brutal our capitalistic system was. Many people were laid off. Many people found themselves almost one step away from living in poverty, right? Because many governments, at least in America, do not provide basic necessities to accommodate for the salaries lost during COVID. So it was really a time for retrospection for a lot of people to really look for ideologies and ways of thinking that had already not been, I guess, present within their current society. But I know we mentioned this a lot, and I just wanted to go into the specifics of it. What is block level planning exactly, and how does it compare to centralized or national level planning that is often usually done in most countries?
Yeah, so the block level planning, it was developed by PR Sarkar, and it is exactly the planning, the decentralized planning for a socioeconomic unit. You can say for a block. And what this means, that is, we propose a planning that is that the citizens that are there, they participate in that plannings. It's um, it's a grassroots planning, and not at the top down, but the bottom up approach. The planning it proposed for a small region that has no more than 100,000 inhabitants, and this means that is a region that it's small enough that we can go deep in the problem. So it means that gives the voice to the citizens, and they are the ones, the best ones to talk about the problems and the needs that they feel, that they know, that they identify in their region. And so it has this sphere of acting, so the planning for this region, but is large enough for in order to create some strategic planning, some strategies that can have some impact at the regional level. This planning is really focused on concrete and bring solutions to concrete problems, and really bringing a real benefit to the population. So the goals of the block level planning, it's kind of provide the minimum requirements for the population. So what are the minimum needs that needs to be addressed? It also has as a goal the full employment, so the employment of the people, to increase the purchasing capacity, and to achieve a self-reliance bioregion. What means bioregion? So it's a natural region that has in common cultural aspects, geographical aspects, resource aspects. So there are many times we can identify in our world regions that are not political or administrative, don't have that boundaries, political or administrative, but they have natural boundaries that are more cultural. The population has some an identity related to that region, and the block level planning, it's to start the planning at this level. So at the block level, this could mean a block no more than one that 100,000 inhabitants. And what we think is that when we do this, we really give voice to the population, and they are the ones that will set the priorities. They know better the resources that they have, and they know better what are the priorities. And this means that it's the citizens at all levels. So it's kind of an integral, holistic approach, and the local sociocultural organizations that can play an active role. They can mobilize human and material resources in order to achieve these priorities, and to implement the strategies that are related. In the end, it's really to put the Prout perspective, that is, we give the response, the answer to the minimum needs of the population and more. We create a very strong local economy that allows everyone to develop themselves and to express their full potential. So theirs goes to the subtle level that we were talking about
Yes.
Prout, that is not only the needs and to answer to the problems, but to give all the conditions for all the cities and all the population, all the communities to develop their full potential at the different levels, at the
Yes.
physical, mental, and spiritual level.
Yes. And yes, I think that's important you mentioned that it allows local communities to develop economically without pressure from a top-down authoritarian source, which is often the case with systems of centralized economic planning. I mean, as an example of this is the USSR, right? I know Pierre Sarkar points to a lot of the economic failures that involving the USSR was due to the fact that their planning was centralized, and that led to a lot of very inefficient bureaucracy. It led to a lot of corruption. It led to, again, just like capitalism, economic power being concentrated in the hands of very few small elites. And so, block level planning, local level planning is an effort to counter economic centralization and just generally offer an opportunity for local communities to thrive without the pressures from any kind of planning committee that may be like hundreds of miles away. So,
Exactly. And
uh,
it's a very rational solution. So
yes.
kind of who knows better what are the needs and how they can answer to that. It's the citizens and the communities.
Yes, yes, yes. A bureaucrat that lives hundreds of miles away does not really understand the needs of a local community, and not like not like members of the local community do themselves. And so,
Exactly.
yeah, it's overall more sustainable. So, how is an area defined as a block? What does a block even mean, and how is this kind of mapped out when it comes to like labeling these like mini bioregions, right?
Yeah, as I was mentioning, so the block is mentioned to a natural region that is that has no more than 100,000 inhabitants. Um how can we identify them? So it's by that common identity, like cultural resources. There are some common things that are in the regions that we can identify. In our case, we have here, it's like Cova da Beira region. It's a region that is well defined by mountains, 3 mountains. Since ancient times, the people identify themselves as this name Cova da Beira, like it's the hole, like in the valley. It's something related to this. And it has a very specific climate because it's in between these 3 mountains. And so the geography, the resources, the natural resources there has very common things in all this region. And because of that, culturally, it was developed a very specific identity, like which means like how the citizens were eating, dressing, singing, um expressing themselves. So there are very specific cultural identity, and this is what means a natural region for identification of a block. We need to identify this natural resource, the common area, so the area that has these common natural resources and cultural identity. This was what made us identify this region as um, to implement our block level planning.
And so, what was the first step in block level planning for the Cova da Beira region? Like, what did you guys do first to kind of map it out? What
Yeah.
was the diagnosis per se?
Exactly. So that was uh, really the first step. As I mentioned in 2020, we started with a collection of statistical data about the region. So first it was kind of a pre-research about the area because we needed to know a little bit, to have more knowledge about the area. So which means that we were collecting statistical data regarding the population, the migration flows, the employment, the health, the education, agriculture, the industries, the economy. We were looking for if there were some governmental plans for the regional development, the natural resources, the geography. So that was like the first step. It's to have a first research about the region. But then really after that, the step was to identify who are the stakeholders to be involved in this participatory diagnosis. So who are the organizations, so the non-governmental and the governmental organizations, who are the leaders, the local leaders, and the local movements or initiatives, so the ones that we should go and speak to. After mapping everything and so asking many of them also who are the ones that we should involve, we started to have some collective community sessions also with some organizations, and we started to have individual interviews. So we made very deep interviews to all these leaders. We made more than 30 interviews with the organizations, leaders, the authorities, the municipalities, and we were asking them about their perspectives of the main problems and needs in the region, what they identified, also what potentials and resources they know in the region, the untapped potential that they identify, also some perspectives and aspirations, personal concerns, what kind of solutions they had in mind and they suggested for answering the main problems or to answer to the needs. What was the ideal scenario for them about the region, and what they felt about the collaborative work, the cooperation in between institutions in the region. That was kind of the first steps that we did through these individual interviews and also some community collective working sessions and working workshops.
That's very interesting. And so what were the main or dominant issues that the local people expressed?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so we have here a very, we are in a specific area that is common in Europe, and is the depopulation problem, and the population is getting elderly. So we have a migration flux from these interior regions to the coast in Portugal, where are the main where are the capital Lisbon and Porto, so the main cities, and where are the big industry centers, and so people are leaving the rural areas to the coast and to the city sides, and this brings, of course, a cycle that all the services are closing. We have less birth, so we have less people living here.
Yes.
The population is getting older, and this was one of the main, because this impacts all the local economy, as we can imagine.
Yes.
They also mention the lack of employment opportunities, but most of them were, we have employment opportunities, but many of them are related to rural activities like agriculture. So what was mentioned, that we were lacking employment that could bring realization to the youth, and so that youth were looking for that in the cities, in the coast. Also the salaries, the low salaries. So as the economy is struggling and it's getting weak, so the salaries in general are very low comparing to the coast side and the other sides of where the cities. And in general, they also mentioned something that was interesting for us, because we have a lot of associations, and actually some kind of citizen and cultural associations, that this is something historic here related to like the cultural heritage. So there are some associations and citizen participation, but what they was mentioning is that was lacking cooperation. Everyone was working by themselves, and
Yeah.
even the municipalities. So this is really a natural region. So in the past, there was a lot of cooperation in this region, Cova da Beira. But in the
Mm.
last years and the last decades, the lack of cooperation was increasing, and the municipalities were working really in very, very individualized way, and so for example, sharing resources. It's not a very big region, as we were mentioning,
Yes,
it's a block, so it's not very big. So there are some resources that could be shared. We don't need to have, like Olympic swimming pools to 3 in every municipality. We could have one that could be shared by everyone. So this kind of planning that was not there.
I see. And no, I actually was gonna ask you that. I think the aging population may have a factor in this. The fact that people may not be getting married or having kids, meaning they're less likely to be invested into their local community. So how was the spirit of cooperation in community something you guys attempted to foster? How, in what ways did you guys envision you could foster that?
So when we were hearing more and more stories related to the lack of cooperation, we were envisioning more and more the pertinence of creating a movement that brings people together. And so focusing on the common aspects and not focusing so much in um, the aspects that can separate us. And yes, we were hearing a lot of things, like of course all of that you mentioned, and also the fact that the different municipalities has rivally, I don't know if I said well in English, but it's kind of
Revival?
competing.
Revived? Oh,
Revival,
rivaled, yeah.
rival, yeah. They are competing with each other, and many stories of conflicts, big conflicts in between municipalities or in between villages. And so the population was focused on these stories. So the stories of the competition. So this kind of a narrative that is also aligned with our capitalist system, that is, we are really based our narrative in the competition, in how we
Yes.
can do better than the others, and no one's want to focus how we can do better together. This was exactly because of this that we proposed, and people was, because they were sharing for us also the solutions. So they can see, people can see that the way of doing things, it's together, it's not fighting each other. So in a very simple but very compassionate and loving way, they were seeing that no, we need to be more together, and we need to start to go and go through all these obstacles and just focus on what we have in common and how we can help each other. So that's what it was, the motor of the creation of the Cova da Beira Converge movement. So it was what it came and appears as a solution, the first solution for all the needs and that we were identifying, because we wanted to go deep in the block level planning. So we engage people in the planning. So it was the continuity of the participatory planning, but also to bring people together in more loving way. So having also moments to have dances, to sing together, to be together, to have moments just to feel each other and create more bonds and trust in between.
And so, as the group started to form to address like the local region's issues, were there any challenges that you guys hit, or was it rather smooth? And what was the response from the local governing authorities? And was it really difficult to persuade them of your guys' local development plan?
Yes. So the local governments were open in the beginning, but we were feeling that they were not giving so much credit to the movement or what it could come from that. Actually, they were thinking, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, okay. You have our approval or intention, but they were not so much engaged and not giving so much credit. During the process, the things were really doing in a different way. There were and there are many challenges when we bring people together to create something. So what we started with, it was to creating working groups, thematic working groups, and monthly gatherings. So these monthly gatherings bring people together. We were bringing also these ideas of what are the needs and the problems that needs to be addressed. So we were also adding more and more in the terms that we were going more in the research. And then we created these thematic working groups which means that people were engaged with the ones that were more, they were working with, etc. So we created the agriculture group, the culture group, education, environment, and social justice and welfare. From all these, so the citizens were gathering to the group, the thematic group that they were most interested in or they were working with. It was a process that has ups and downs in the terms of the motivation. We are talking about, first, it's a volunteer work, of course. People are there extra their working hours. So many times they are lacking the time for that, because we also have a system that doesn't allow so much time for people to be engaged in community activities and have time for their families and for themselves. So this is a challenge. And also because of that, we don't have the culture of participating. So many times, because we know that all these plannings are made by or the government or the academic aspects in the academy. So it's not for us as citizens. And we don't have that culture. So it kind of creates a thing that is, we don't see so much the pertinence or sometimes. But what we saw is that there are very, very much motivation and excitement, and citizens sees this as a very important thing to do. But there are ups and downs in terms of the engagement, and this is a challenge for them. Balance well the working their profession, the family times, their own times, and the times for the community. But anyway, and this was the process that had ups and downs, and many new people were coming. So that creates also a challenge. That is more the flow of people that are in the process, and then somehow they don't have so much time now, and then new people come, and to create a flow that can go, in sequence and don't go back and forward. So this is a challenge. But at the same time, we understood that sometimes we say no, that there are these terms that sometimes we need to give 3 steps back to give 2 really good in advance and go forward. And that
Yes.
happens in this case, which means that there was more diversity, more voices were in the planning, and more people were engaging in this movement. So this spread in the region, and in these terms spread in terms of also to the social media, in terms of the communication. And it was in that time that now the organizations and the local government, they can give more credit, and we are asked now, it's in the opposite. So they are asking for our advice in many aspects, because they know that there are the people voice and the citizens voice there, and yes, so it's something that is progressive. Our envision is that, so there are some projects as a result of all this planning, but what we see, it's that in all these in all these moments of creating new projects, we do also new plannings. So the planning, it's something that doesn't hand specifically. Why? We can imagine there are always new things to address, new needs that are identified, and so what we envision is to create a participatory governance in the region. So that's why it was very linked, the block level planning. It's linked with this citizens movement. That is something that is to remain in the region as a citizen participation for a continuing planning. So it's something that is going to continue.
So, no, it is a balancing act that you guys have to really kind of walk, in the sense that you have to balance guiding the local community and kind of stepping back and letting them organize themselves? Because ultimately you want them to be self-reliant. So how have you balanced that?
Yes, yes, that's also a big challenge. We see ourselves as facilitators, so we want to be as much as possible just facilitating the process and not be as active. So we need to see ourselves in a very different perspectives and what are the roles of everyone. So that's something that we really to address since the beginning. And what we can see, of course, that our guidance it's more directive in the beginning, and it starts to be less and less. And that's the vision for every initiatives and groups that comes and that appears in the movement. So in the beginning, we were really having to put more of ourselves and put more suggestion and bringing more topics. And now there are some groups that are already autonomous and they already create their initiatives. But it is something that we really observe that it's also in our culture, again because we are not used to have block level plannings. We don't have the citizens involved in the plannings, so many times they are tend to be more passive, which means that they are not used to get the like autonomy of the initiatives, and they are waiting for someone to do that because that was what always happened. No, the government, the municipalities, the franchisees, the national organizations.
And because this model of development was so different to what the people there were used to, and just in terms of being different and maybe challenging to a lot of the interests of like local economic actors. So did you guys receive any pushback from existing corporations or special interests who weren't aligned with the cooperative model of development?
It was more since the beginning because we engage with many of them, or so much more that we could since the beginning, because we want their voices also in the planning. We had that kind of concern. It is possible to plan something that align the voices of the corporations and the citizens in the same movement, in the same group. And actually it's not that we have so much different goals. Yes, that's correct, that there are some agendas that are different, and we didn't receive kind of a direct opposition, but is again like discredit or not giving so much
Yes,
credit.
yes.
Like, so it's very interesting. Let's see what the citizens are talking about
Yes,
this.
yes.
But this kind of discredit, yes, for sure.
As long as you don't challenge their power, they're okay, right? As long as you keep it local. But when it builds, I guess that's when the tension starts to
Yes, but
grow.
but for example, now we have like there are specific tension regarding solar panels projects, and so the big ones and the ones that are from foreigners companies. So like it's not going to benefit mm, so much the local economy. It's at the national level. And here, yes, we have some specific tension in between the local and citizens movement and these block level planning
Yes,
suggestions and solutions and these agendas.
I see. I see. Interesting. So moving on from that and into how you guys builded the network of cooperatives, right? You built the Converge Cova da Beira cooperative, which could you explain to the audience what its function
Yeah.
is?
hmm Yeah. So the cooperative was one of the projects that came up from the movement. So it's the movement. So we had three different moments that we can briefly mention. So the one that it started in the participatory diagnosis in 2020. In 2022, we created the movement, Cova da Beira Converge movement. So it's the citizen movement. And this year, in the beginning of the year, in May, we created the Converge Cooperative, the Integral Cooperative. It was a result because one of our groups, the agriculture group, was going deep into food sovereignty. And we started to create and wanted to implement a local food system. And in order to do that, the first strategy that was identified to supply some local canteens, the school canteens and some social institutions canteens with the local agriculture products. And when we were trying to implement that, we found pretty much the need to create a cooperative in order to facilitate the commercial aspects of this supply food system. And this was the first motor for the creation of the cooperative. But as we were developing all of this, we were engaged with a movement that also exists in Portugal, and not only Portugal. It started in Catalonia, in Spain, with the Catalonia in the integral cooperative of Catalonia, and so brought us the idea of integral cooperative, which means that we as a movement, we didn't had only one aspect, only agriculture aspect, for example. It was not only the food system, the local food system that we want to implement. We had many different aspects because our movement was already integral. We had the culture aspects, the education, the health environment. So there are all the areas that are needed in a community for our development, and the development of the community was there. So this is integral aspect. And we heard about the integral cooperatives, which for us at that moment resonates completely, because that was what we were already, we integral. And then when we heard more about what it is, it makes totally sense for us to also to apply, because it's the idea that we share more resources. And so this cooperative doesn't have only one sector of activity. So in this case, we started with the agriculture, but it's not only the agriculture aspect. There are 9 sectors of activity in this cooperative, which means that this cooperative can develop cultural activities, service at all levels. And so that's the idea of the integral cooperative, which means that it's a multi-sector cooperative in legal terms, but it has the concept of integral. We will have all the activities that are needed for our community. And so we have housing, all kind of industrial production, etc.
I see. No, that is really cool to hear. I mean, this is actually my first time hearing of an integral cooperative, and it's really cool to see how it kind of encompasses a lot of cultural elements into it. So, moving on to our final section, what do you believe is next for the Cova da Beira Converge movement?
Mm-hmm. So now we are focused on the building capacity, and so training and courses that can bring more capacity to implement all the strategies that we envision and we already created. That's what we are really focused. We will continue with the gatherings, with the cultural aspects of the gatherings, which means to create the bonds between the community, with the dances, with the music, with all the cultural aspects. That is really, really important for us to be able to cooperate in between us. And this aspect of courses and trainings that bring more tools, concrete tools to the citizens to implement the strategies that were created in the block level planning. Yes, and also to create even more bonds and more partnerships between the organizations in the region and in between the municipalities. So we think that we can do better. Still, we can do better in between the institutional organizations and between them.
Okay. So I like to end each episode with a call to action for our viewers. So what would your advice be for those interested in supporting block level planning within their own community with the power that they have currently, of course, in our system, but what would you suggest if one really feels inspired to develop their local community?
So I would say that you should observe your community, see who are the organizations and the leaders, and just go and talk with them and start to listen. So deep listening to them and what they envision as their needs, the problems, and what kind of solutions. This would be the first step to really deep listening and to facilitate the dialogue. I think it's something that is really important in the moment of the world that we are today. We tend to have the polarized opinions, having like the radicalization of positions, etc. And so everything that you can do that is initiatives to create space for dialogue and deep listening, I think it's something that you could start with. And yes, and then from that there's something that comes, as you start it goes naturally with the flow, because you create dialogue, you listen people, and
Yes.
naturally they have already some answers, so it's just to help them how to achieve that solutions that they have in mind.
It's really inspiring. I think what you said is very important. You just have to you have to be very observant on the climate of your local community and kind of assess from there, making sure to identify who's in charge, who controls pretty much the day-to-days, and kind of from there, just doing your best to support. And no, it's really great to have you on here, Filipa. We had a great conversation, and I hope to see you again here sometime. As always, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe, hit the bell notification button, and we'd really appreciate if you chip in at prout.info/donate. Yeah, we're a grassroots organization. We take $0 from advertisements and we don't monetize our videos, so we really appreciate uh the donation. But anyways, this was great. Have a wonderful week, Felipa, and thank you for this conversation.
And thank you, Ishan, for the opportunity. Thank you for your work, very inspiring. And I hope that it can develop and spread to through the world.
Awesome. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.